Hey, how y'all doing? So today I'm going to explore the concept of why you should learn Machiavellian strategies and other psychological strategies like that to make sure that you can both, number one, get ahead in life and also defend yourself. And you may think first that this is a bit of a moral approach and we shouldn't be trying to learn this stuff, but let me tell you, there's so many benefits to getting this knowledge down so you can get ahead in life, especially if you want to achieve your goals. But it's not all about crushing others, because one of the best pieces of advice I've ever seen out there on the internet is what Jordan Peterson says when he talks about the controlled monster. So becoming a controlled monster, as Jordan Peterson says, his view is that, it's more ethical and safer to be capable yet controlled, right? Rather than just being harmless by default. He says if you're weak, you're even more dangerous. You're likely to be passive aggressive and all that thing. Whereas if you're really powerful, if you become really powerful, whether that's physically powerful or mentally powerful, you're more likely to offer restraint, And I'll explore that in a little bit further. So what is Machiavellian principles? Well, Machiavellian principles came from this guy. I've got the original book here, The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. This was his book Machiavelli wrote this book for the rulers of Italy back in the 16th century to guide the rulers on how to rule over the population, basically. And this book's pretty brutal. You've got to understand the context, 16th century. So the tactics in here are very much about pragmatism. And Machiavelli almost uses fear, driving fear into the public to get what you need, and that's one of the principles that Machiavellian strategy is associated with. Is it's almost like pragmatism over morality. So you might have heard the term "the ends justify the means." This is used by a lot of things like protests and things like this, or movements, political movements. And that basically is quite aligned to Machiavellian principles in a way. However, Machiavellian principles are also part of what we know as the Dark Triad. So another great book that I've read a lot of books on this topic. Another great book is Office Politics. So this is Oliver James. He's a psychologist, I think, and this book covers all the Dark Triad, which is narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. So the idea with this book is how to thrive in a world of lying, backstabbing and dirty tricks. So it's all about navigating the office politics landscape. And I think this is a great book. It's quite funny. There's a lot of funny stories in here. Like he mentions about a colleague that he worked with who was quite brutal in his relationships, with the opposite sex. This guy who would manipulate women and almost bring them to sort of, getting married to him, and then he'd leave them stood up at the altar and go off. Absolutely brutal. Now, I'm going to cover that in a minute. I think there is some morality if you're going to learn these skills, but certainly you should not be trying to hurt any individual. But the premise of this book is to learn the techniques used. So the idea is that you can spot all the red flags when you're going to be manipulated, and if you need to, you can defend yourself. Back to Jordan Peterson's point on becoming that controlled monster, I would rather be armed with all of the tactics, you know what I mean? So think about some of the tactics that you kind of recognize in the behaviors, maybe manipulative behaviors. That might be distorting the truth, maybe evading answers, all sorts of things like that. And you want to be able to spot those things, right? So reading such books is going to help you along those lines. And I'll just read the back of it. Game playing, duplicity, and sheer malevolence are rife. If you think that you're judged on merit, think again. It's your ability to play the political game that counts, right? Exposing the devious practices that propel people to the top. Oliver James divulges strategies and techniques for triumphing over a new breed of office monsters. And I think that's the point there, if you think in the workplace, I used to work in corporate and I saw this. There was kind of various different types of people. You'd find people that were useful, they had skills. In any office, you'd get a certain group of individuals that are very skilled, that be doing most of the work. And they might fall into two categories. They're kept in a productive role because they need to be in a productive role to make the organisation profitable. And they're generally driven by middle managers who, a lot of these middle managers, they're not that skilled themselves, but what they are skilled in is the office politics. So in my experience in the corporate world, there were some middle managers that their only skill in life is working the system and being able to do the dirty work of the bosses and work the system basically. And that's just how it is. You know, if you're skilled, your best option, if you're one of them skilled individuals in the workplace, is to get the hell out and start your own business, because you will be one of them people that can create goals and stand on your own 2 feet on the back of your skills. Now, the practical skills and the business skills and relationship skills, negotiating skills are kind of different skill sets. And that's why I advocate reading about Machiavelli. So out of the Dark Triad, I would say the Machiavellian side of it is probably the most powerful part of it, because it's basically mental chess. That's where you're playing the game basically, and you're beating others at their own game. So, you know, if you think about it, like, it's Machiavellian strategies is all about power and perception, right? How can we persuade others to get what we want? And this is like negotiation. So I've done a lot. I've not got Scott's book here, but it was my business coach for 3 years. He's a hostage negotiator, so we learned a lot of there about active listening and all of that. Really, it's not Machiavellian strategies, but it's all about getting what you want out of life. And I think it's the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. One of Naval's tweets is something like, your intelligence is judged by whether you get what you want in life, right? And if you think about all negotiation, stuff that I was learning with Scott, it's all about persuading others to get what you want. And the Machiavellian strategies are just the most brutal end of that, right? So anyway, what you want is to be able to recognize when you're being manipulated, right? So that you can respond. You want to be that controlled monster. Why is it moral then to be that controlled monster mentally? I'm going to explain the parallels here. So if you think about in the physical training world, right, it's not socially acceptable for us to manipulate others. Yet it goes on behind the scenes. We see this in politics. You know, all of politics is manipulation. And obviously there's propaganda, there's everything. There's trying to convince the electorate that you're the person to lead the country or whatever. That happens all the time, every single country, right? So you've got politicians playing these tactics against each other. We know that. But publicly, if you say it's manipulation, it's frowned upon. It's not moral or acceptable to do that. But if you think about the physical world, right? So we all train. If you're into fitness, why do you get stronger? Why do you get faster, stronger? Why do you lift weights? Why do you train martial arts? Why do people learn boxing? Right? It's socially acceptable to do sport, get fit, get stronger, learn martial arts to defend yourself physically. So that being said, why is it not acceptable for you to defend yourself mentally using whatever tactics you can? So I would rather understand all of them tools of how to defend myself. This is why I read a lot of psychology, so that, you think the power of the brain there, how you can get what you want out of life and achieve your goals. You want all those tools to be able to exercise them when you need to. Now, you have to be responsible, you know what I mean? It's not like you want to be strategic about this, rather you don't want to be going down malicious intent. In terms of the morality of this, right, my opinion is, in the business world, all business is conducted through strategies and tactics. I'm going to give you an example, right? If you create a startup company out of nowhere, complete scarcity, brand new, trying to get that off the ground is incredibly hard work when you've got these massive corporations which are your biggest competition, and there'll be various sizes of competition. The massive corporations can just step on you, whether it is throwing money at marketing, their tactics in terms of, like, if you see a high-end salesperson, they're always there sharply dressed, they're whining and dining clients, they turn up in a expensive sports car or something like this, and that is all part of the techniques of sales, you know what I mean? So that's kind of like We don't call it manipulation, but that's what it is, right? So in the business world, I think you should be using, especially if you're starting out, you should be playing the competition at their own game and using every single strategy you can. I used to work with a guy, he was that good. He was a great business strategist. He always said he was 3 steps ahead of everyone, and he really was. He was like mental chess. I've always been the technical guy, you know. I'm in software, I've always been very technical. So I'd be like the consultant coming in, offering the solution, and he'd be sort of brokering all the office politics and everything. And as a team, we was absolutely insane. And the things that I learned off him in terms of strategy was absolutely brilliant. And you have to, if you're trying to get off the ground and you think you're going to do it organically and just succeed, you've no chance. Well, you might do if you've got a long time, you know, several lifetimes to wait for it to grow organically. That's fine. But if not, you've got to do everything you can. Everything in life is about communication, negotiation, all of your relationships. This is why you should learn human psychology, relationships, so that you can convince others. You know, you want to be doing this through influence. So Machiavelli here was doing it through fear. I think you're better to go through it. Sometimes you might need to do that, you know. If you're in a situation where you just haven't got time and you can see an out, and I think, especially in business, you should go for it, right? But generally, you want to use better influence and all that. And that is what the modern day marketing world is about. You know, it's the difference between outbound and inbound marketing. That's what I would do in business. I think in business, you've got a complete pass. I'm not saying tell lies, but play the competition at their own game. I have had to do this to win various contracts. I've had the big competition try and trod on me deliberately. It was pretty plain, and they'll sort of masquerade around, I'm in software, so they masquerade around security and risk and all this stuff. So I'd have to play that game back to them, you know, by using the same language. So I think it's fine. Where it comes down to individuals, I think this is where you need to be more of a controlled monster, right? The best thing about learning Machiavellian strategies is it's so that you have the tools in your toolbox so you can defend yourself mentally. But generally, I would not advise manipulating people. There are all sorts of ways to manipulate people. There's a lot of, you know, if you think about the dating world, there's all sorts of, you know, the pickup space has been going for decades now, and that's all around manipulating people. I think on that, the best thing that you can do is just, you know, up your value and be genuine there instead. You know, up your inherent value, be genuine. Then you don't have to manipulate, you know, you're the real deal. But in the video that I did, the Mark Manson models review, I said there, you know, when you're starting out and you're not getting results in the dating world, you have to fake it until you make it a little bit, read a few books and, you know, use some canned lines or whatever just to get ahead. But your whole purpose there in using them techniques and things and trying to act alpha is eventually you want to become the real guy, you know, that real person, which is not an alpha bad boy, by the way. It's just person with, you know, high self-worth. So I certainly would not go down the lines of trying to manipulate individuals. But, you know, if ever there was a time where someone was trying to manipulate you, I think it's absolutely fine to do so. And, you know, this is what it's about. It's about having I don't know, how would we call it? Like an ethical edge, right? You've got the knowledge should you need to use it. But you're going to use self-restraint because you're going to be that controlled monster, right? I'm just going to give you law 33 out of the 48 laws of power. And let's find out what page you're in, because this is fantastic, this one. My favourite law, right? This is a good way to defend yourself. 131, there we go. Law 33, discover each man's thumbscrew, right? That's the law. So it's written in kind of old English, if you like. The judgment. Everyone has a weakness, a gap in the castle wall. The weakness is usually an insecurity or an uncontrollable emotion or need. It can also be a small secret pleasure. Either way, once found, it is a thumbscrew that you can turn to your advantage. So discover each man's thumbscrew. This is what happens in most negotiations. So detectives, right? Or in the courtroom. The whole thing is trying to discover a weakness in an individual to exploit it to then get the win. That is done, right? I love that law. Law 33, discover each man's thumbscrew. Like I say, it's written in Old English, but yeah, that's the style of Robert Greene, who is the modern day Machiavel. So a popular term that you've heard that I really like is the pen is mightier than the sword. And this goes back to the parallels in the physical world. You know, it's okay for us to train ourselves to become an expert martial artist, to defend ourselves, or learn boxing so we can defend ourselves. In the same regard, I think using the power of your mind is probably one of the best defense mechanisms. And if we think about the human, you know, humans as a species, right? We dominate this earth. We're the apex predator on this earth, right? Not because we're faster and stronger, because we are far superior to other animals in terms of strength, speed, senses. You know, like you think, or you know, we are just weak as a species. But the reason why we're dominant is because of the power of our mind, right? And that is the thing, right? You want to use your mind to become infinitely powerful, to become that controlled monster, knowing that if you need to, you can exercise that to protect yourself and your loved ones, and also to make sure that you get what you want out of life, or life goes in your direction. Like I said, create an identity for yourself and go and live it. And one of the best ways to do that is to have personal sovereignty. And where does personal sovereignty come from? Well, it comes from knowing that it's not that you're untouchable, right? But knowing that you have that personal sovereignty, that freedom, as in free from constraints. Your opinion and what you do and your choices in life cannot be manipulated by others. Just think about that. Learning these skills will help you along that journey. The pen is mightier than the sword. So go and read some of the books. I'll put a list down below. Go and read a few. Start learning some Machiavellian strategies. But remember, be the controlled monster. Use them for a force for good. Don't screw anyone over, all right? But go and get what you want out of business in your own direction in life. Okay, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you all next time.